Hi, very good morning. I am Dr. Janak Patel, MD, General Physician. All my video lectures are mainly for educative purpose. Today we are going to discuss regarding one of the very interesting and very useful topic in everyday practice. Very frequently it can be asked in your oral as well as in your theory, and you will come across in your everyday practice. And this will be very helpful to fourth year students in exams also. So we are going to talk regarding malaria, or we call malaria fever, and we are very much aware that this is because of transmission of malarial parasites by a mosquito bite to a human being, and the mosquito which is responsible is a female Anopheles mosquito. So this disease is produced by transmission of infection by a mosquito bite, and where the person will have fever with rigor, and particularly in case of P. falciparum you can develop a severe malaria. And also now there are some cases which are being noted in P. vivax also, which are severe and complicated malaria. So female Anopheles mosquito will transmit this infection. As routine, we'll be talking under all these headings: definition, etiology, pathophysiology, clinical features, investigations, differential diagnosis, treatment, and complications. There are nearly 100 or more than 100 species of Plasmodium, out of which 5 groups of Plasmodium are responsible for transmitting malarial disease in human beings. Mainly 4 are most commonly seen, and this particular malarial parasites, that is Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium malariae, Plasmodium ovale, they commonly involve human beings, and they are transmitted by Anopheles, female Anopheles mosquito. While there is another Plasmodium group called Plasmodium knowlesi, and that is transmitted from a monkey to a human being. P. vivax accounts for nearly 43% of the cases, and P. falciparum accounts for nearly 50% of the cases. So you can see that almost 95% of the group of people are involved because of P. vivax or P. falciparum. P. vivax will result into benign tertian malaria, meaning every third day person will get fever, while P. falciparum results into malignant tertian malaria. P. malaria will be quartan fever, which is accounting for 7%, and P. ovale, which is absolutely rare, very, very rare, mild tertian fever, and which is accounting for less than 1% of infections. So it is spread by female Anopheles mosquito. We already mentioned all the 5 names: P. ovale, P. vivax, P. malaria, P. falciparum, and P. knowlesi, out of which the P. falciparum has got highest morbidity as well as mortality. But nowadays you also see the case of P. vivax and occasionally case of a knowlesi, which can be there with complications. In India, malaria is seasonal and immunity is not very well developed. Thus, severe disease can occur in all age groups. This is the scenario in India. Already we know these 5 names. So Plasmodium vivax is called benign tertian. Plasmodium ovale is also called benign tertian, while Plasmodium falciparum is called malignant tertian, and P. malariae will give rise to quartan fever. And there are different names given to that. By and large, Plasmodium vivax gives rise to uncomplicated malaria, while Plasmodium falciparum is very frequently associated with some complications, so you call that as complicated malaria. or also sometimes we use the word chloroquine resistance malaria. Almost majority of time Plasmodium falciparum is resistant to malaria, to chloroquine. That's why it is also called chloroquine resistant malaria. There are other terms which are being utilized: recrudescence, resistance, recurrent, or relapse. So these particular words will be explaining now. Complicated or severe, recrudescence, resistance or chronic, recurrent or relapse. Now these three terms, recrudescence means infective, from an infective treatment that did not clear the infection. So when you are giving a treatment for Plasmodium groups, in spite of giving a full treatment, still Plasmodium are not cleared, or there is a high anti-malarial resistance group, then it will give rise to recrudescence of malaria. If blood was cleared from merozoites, but hypnozoites parasites remains in liver, particularly this is most common in case of P. vivax, but you don't get hypnozoites in case of P. falciparum. Hence, P. vivax is known to produce relapse, and that relapse can occur even after few months to even after years. While reinfection means an individual was effectively treated and now he is involved by a new malarial parasites or new bout of malaria, which is very common in an endemic area, then it is called reinfection. A single infection does not confirm immunity. Therefore, there is always a chance of reinfection if the person is staying in an endemic area. So, relapse and recrudescence is different. Recrudescence is because of incomplete treatment, and that occurs because of either resistant malaria or the infective treatment. The treatment what is being given is not completely effective, and it is very commonly seen in P. falciparum, while relapse is quite commonly seen in case of P. vivax. So etiology wise we know these four main: P. vivax, P. falciparum, P. malaria, P. ovale, and occasionally now you also see these cases of P. knowlesi. But out of all these five, P. vivax and P. falciparum accounts for the major group. P. malaria rarely seen, not commonly seen, and even P. knowlesi is also very rarely seen. The area which are very commonly affected is South America, Africa, South Asia, Southeast Asia. In 2010, there were around 1.49 million of cases were reported by National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, short form we call NVBDCP, which said that 50% was due to P. falciparum, and this usually results into severe malaria or complicated malaria. All people are prone to have risk of getting malarial parasites transmitted by a female Anopheles mosquito. Particularly it is during a night time. Some persons are more prone to, like younger children's, older persons, pregnant women, and person with immunocompromised host, particularly HIV infection and AIDS. We are almost aware of all these five common Plasmodium species. These are the different malarial parasites seen in a peripheral smear. Mortality is mainly due to P. falciparum. We have already shown you that the P. vivax incidence is 50 to 55%. Plasmodium falciparum is also accounting for 48 to 52%, while P. malaria is commonly seen in Orissa, and P. ovale is usually not found commonly in India. 95% of our population in India lives in a malaria risk area, and 90% of the time malaria is unstable. So you can get malarial infection at any time. Risk factor wise, the person who are traveling to an endemic area, they are more prone to, we already mentioned, pregnant women, younger children, and person with a HIV or AIDS infection are more prone for malarial infections. We already mentioned that the vector which is responsible is mosquito, particularly female Anopheles mosquito. And in a mosquito, you will have a sporogenous stage, particularly in a mosquito, that is gametocytic stage, or we call sexual cycle, while asexual cycle, which is exoerythrocytic, and erythrocytic cycle, which is more common in human beings. We'll be going in short. So we already mentioned that it is transmitted by a bite of a female Anopheles mosquito. Blood, maximum from the fresh blood up to 5 days. If you get a fresh blood, it can be transmitted up to 5 days. There is no infection in a stored blood if it is after 5 days. And usually there will be no infection if you use plasma transfusion. It can be transmitted by means of a syringe in a drug addicts, or by a syringe which is infected by a blood from an infected person. If the blood is collected from an infected person and the same syringe is utilized for injecting another person, the infection can be transmitted. These are very odd way. These are all iatrogenic. While in a drug addict, it can be transmitted from one person who is infected to another person because of using that infected material syringe. Very, very rarely, mother can transmit to the child, particularly if there is AIDS. Usually, you will have a mosquito bite by a female Anopheles mosquito during night, and this female Anopheles mosquito are attracted because of carbon dioxide and food odors, and usually they bite during night time. Once they bite from the saliva of a mosquito, आवाज बंद करशो. So they are transmitted by a female Anopheles mosquito by mosquito bite at the night time. From the saliva of this mosquito, Anopheles sporozoites are released. They will be carried by a bloodstream to the liver. In liver, they will develop within 5 to 10, 12 days. They will lead to hepatic scissions, which will rupture and release merozoites in blood, as well as these hepatic scissions, particularly in case of P. vivax, will be converted into hypnozoites. These merozoites which are released into blood, they will be entering into a RBC. In RBC, they will multiply, they will become trophozoites, and that trophozoites will become scissions. Again, when RBC ruptures, these merozoites will be released into bloodstream. This will occur at every 48 hours. And during that particular time, because of parasitemia, release of merozoites in blood will give rise to fever. So you get every third day fever. And this produces classical benign tertian fever in case of P. vivax, and in case of P. falciparum, it will produce malignant tertian fever. Particularly in case of a P. falciparum, It also gives rise to formation of a specific type of a protein over infected RBC, and this infected RBC will have cytoadherence and they will form rosettes, and because of this formation of rosettes, in case of a P. falciparum, the RBC are sticky and they get stuck together because of cytoadherence, and they will block microcirculation leading to multi-organ damage. As well as these trophozoites will be converted into gametocytes, and these gametocytes will be present in RBC. Now whenever this particular infected person is mosquito bites, then in mosquito, when it sucks the blood, these gametocytes will enter into mosquito, into the gut, and now you will develop a sexual cycle in mosquito. While in case of a human being, in liver, it will be exoerythrocytic cycle, while in a blood, it will be erythrocytic cycle. So this will be the difference in human being and in case of mosquito. We are not going into detail. We have got lot of slides you can go through. You can see that when mosquito bites, it will release sporozoites. Then it will be converted into hypnozoites in human being, as well as it will be converted into sezonts and then into merozoites. It will develop erythrocytic cycle, and then erythrocytic cycle will rupture. RBC will rupture on every 24 or 48 hours depending upon the type of malaria, and it will give rise to fever on every alternate day or every second day or every fourth day. And then this particular will involve other group of RBC. Again, in that RBC, it can be converted into gametocytes, and when mosquito bites, gametocytes will be transferred and they will form sexual cycle, giving rise to zygotes, oocytes, sporozoites, and finally they will be stored in saliva, and whenever mosquito bites human being, it will be retransmitted. This is again same. This is sporogeny cycle, and this is erythrocytic cycle, exoerythrocytic cycle, shown in detail. At your leisure time, you can go through. This is again same. This is a cycle shown in a mosquito, that is right from gametocytes which are sucked. You get formation of microgametes, macrogametes, zygote formation, ookinete, oocyst, then bursting of the cyst, sporozoites release into salivary gland. Then whenever it bites, they will be transmitted to human being, and then in the liver, they will be converted into hypnozoites, or they will mature into sezonts form, and when sezont ruptures, it will give rise to merozoites, and this is the time where the person will develop fever. And now it will give rise to erythrocytic cycle. So erythrocytic cycle will have, because on our erythrocytes there is a Duffy antigens which will attract this particular merozoites, will give rise to formation of trypanozoites, then sezont formation and rupture of erythrocytes leading to parasitemia. So this is quite important. P. malaria and P. knowlesi invades older RBC, so they rupture much faster, while P. ovale and P. falciparum will invade all type of RBC, right from early, we call reticulocytes, up to fully matured RBC, while P. vivax mainly involve, we call young and immature RBC, that is reticulocytes. So these are the different invasion of an RBC, type of RBC which they invade, and that is because of the Duffy antigens. This is stage 1, this is stage 2, stage 3. At your leisure time, you can go through. So you've got a merozoite formation, trophozoite formation, late trophozoite, sezonts, and then it ruptures, releasing what we call as merozoites. And that merozoites can again re-invade RBC. And in case of P. falciparum, it will give rise to formation of gametocytes, and this will be sucked into blood, when mosquito bites, and then you will have a sexual cycle or gametocyte cycles in case of mosquito in a gut. So we have got a pre-erythrocytic, exoerythrocytic, erythrocytic, and gametocytic. Pre-erythrocytic is in liver. Exoerythrocytic, again you can get in a person who has got hypnozoites in liver. Erythrocytic is in a RBC, and gametocytic cycle is there in a female Anopheles mosquito. So this is exoerythrocytic, which will be there in a liver. Erythrocytic will be in a RBC, and in a mosquito you will get gametocytic or sporogenic stage. There's a little difference between P. vivax and P. falciparum. In P. vivax, few merozoites are released by infected liver cells, while in case of a P. falciparum, large number of merozoites are released by infected liver cells. Hence, there's a very high level of parasitemia in blood, while here you get a less number of parasites. So, severity of fever is very high in case of P. falciparum. That's why it is also called malignant tertian fever. P. vivax parasites will now invade only old RBC, while this can invade all ages of RBC. This will lead to, very rarely, to severe malaria. This is invariably leading to severe malaria because RBC are coated with a protein. These particular RBC are sticky and they adhere, they form a clumps and they give rise to occlusion. Hence, they will produce multi-organ damage. Relapse is most common because in an RBC, there is a dormant stage we call hypnozoites, which is very common in P. vivax, while in a P. falciparum, usually you does not get a dormant variety of a malarial parasites. Hence, there is no relapse in case of P. falciparum, while very commonly you get a relapse in case of a P. vivax, which can be right from few weeks to months or even after many years also. There are some areas which are very much prone to P. falciparum and P. vivax infection. Almost we say that the entire India, but more common in a slum area and unhygienic area where usually we'll call as a rural area where the hygiene is very poor, sanitation is poor. It is more common in younger children, pregnant women, non-immune person or immunocompromised person, particularly to a person who is suffering from HIV or AIDS, and the travelers from a non-malarial to an endemic region. This is what we have already explained, cytoadherence, and can produce a damage to lungs, kidneys, spleen, and even brain. And when it involves brain, this is more common in P. falciparum, and you come across what we call as cerebral malaria, and then it can produce altered mental status, seizures, and coma. And when it involves GI tract, it is also called as a bilious malaria. So this is a typical thing. It is because of production of a sticky protein which coats the surface of infected RBC. They develop cytoadherence and they will block the circulation, and that will produce multi-organ damage. Clinical picture we can divide into incubation period, prodromal period, typical clinical symptoms and signs, and it will vary from person to person. So we'll be going through that. So incubation period in P. vivax and P. oval is around 2 weeks. P. malaria is right from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, while in case of P. falciparum, it is 7 to 12 days. Usually prodrome is between 2 to 3 days, which will be before the person starts developing typical fever, where person will have a little fever, malaise, fatigue, muscle pain, nausea, anorexia, and very frequently it is mistaken as influenza or GI tract infection because of nausea, vomiting. Slight fever may worsen just prior to the paroxysm. Now, when a person develops a febrile stage, that is we call paroxysm, it is classically associated with, it starts with a cold stage where person will develop severe rigor. Then person will develop a hot stage where temperature can go up to 104, 105. Person invariably will have a little amount of splenomegaly, which may be just palpable or easily palpable. Then following a hot stage, now person will develop a profuse sweating and prostration, where person now will complain of severe fatigue, malaise, muscle pain, etc. And this entire cycle can last from 8 hours to 12 hours. Usually will start in a midnight or in a midday. This is very peculiar, and this duration of appearance of paroxysm will depend upon the type of malaria. In a case of P. vivax, it is benign tertian, means every third day person will develop a fever. While in case of P. falciparum, it is called malignant tertian because it can have 2 cycles or 3 cycles. And depending upon that, person can have almost nearly, instead of intermittent fever, nearly continuous fever, good number of time in case of a P. falciparum. By and large, this particular pattern is very easily seen. In general, malaria will produce headache, classical fever with rigor, fatigue, muscle pain, backache, chills and sweating. Occasionally, person can have a dry cough. Spleen is very frequently being enlarged and it may be just palpable to very clearly palpable. And person can have nausea and vomiting, quite common, which will be seen in almost all variety of malaria. So during a bouts of fever, chills, headache, sweating, lethargy, cough, myalgia, lower abdominal pain, and particularly in case of P. falciparum, person can have diarrhea or frequency of stool. And good number of time they will have loss of appetite, little nausea, vomiting, and even joint pain may be there. So these are the common things which will be seen. Usually in case of P. falciparum, you can also have RBC being hemolyzed very fast and in large number, and they can even have mild jaundice. And particularly when they develop severe diarrhea, vomiting, it is called as algid malaria, and which is very, very common in case of P. falciparum. So you can have cerebral malaria, hemolysis, which is called black water fever, and if they develop diarrhea and vomiting, it is called algid malaria. These terms are commonly utilized in person with P. falciparum. So these are all the things we have already mentioned. You can see in a case of a different types of malaria, but more common in P. falciparum. Now, malaria can be uncomplicated to another variety we call as a complicated variety. By and large, in a P. vivax, it is uncomplicated groups. While in case of a P. falciparum, most commonly it is a complicated malaria or we call as a severe malaria. So Plasmodium vivax very frequently will have a fever with splenomegaly, very mild hemolysis, and relapses are very common because of hypnozoites. While in case of a P. malariae, fever, mild symptoms, and they very commonly develop glomerulonephritis or nephrotic syndromes. This is very, very common. So if person with malarial parasite positive comes to you with a glomerulonephritis, invariably it will be because of Plasmodium malariae group, which is not common in India, So this is roughly the difference between the three varieties. In case of P. vivax and P. ovale, it is a tertian fever. Usually we use the word benign tertian. In case of a P. malaria, it is a quartan fever, means every fourth day person gets fever. While in case of a P. falciparum, it is described as a malignant tertian. And depending upon the release of merozoites, it can be on every third day or sometime it is almost every day. And even in a day, you can have 2 cycles or 3 cycles. Exoerythrocytic cycle outside the RBC is very common in case of a P. vivax, as hypnozoites are present in patient with P. vivax infection, while in case of a P. malaria, pre-erythrocytic cycle is only there in case of liver, also in case of a P. falciparum. Relapses can occur right from few weeks to up to 2 years, while in P. malaria, it can occur after many years, while in a P. falciparum, it can occur up to 1 year. In case of P. vivax, it mainly involves reticulocytes and younger RBC, while P. malaria will involve older RBC, while P. falciparum will involve any RBC of all age, means younger, like reticulocytes right from the older RBC, any. Here in a P. vivax, you will have a release of merozoites, say around 10,000. In case of P. malaria, around 15,000. While in case of a P. falciparum, it can be very high, up to say 30,000 merozoites can be released in each infected cycle. And that's why it is also called as a pernicious malaria. And depending upon the organ involvement, cerebral malaria, inner GI tract, algid malaria, and when you get an acute hemolysis, we called as black water fever. This is the little difference between all the three. Very useful, very important as far as your clinical picture is also concerned, and in a practical side, clinical side, it will be useful to differentiate the three. We already explained recrudescence, relapse, and recurrence. I've already explained before. This is again a slide you can go through at leisure time. So relapse will be more common with P. vivax, while recrudescence will be more common with P. falciparum, because in spite of treatment, because it is resistant to good number of anti-malarial drugs. Cerebral malaria or encephalitis is very common in children, pregnant women, and immunocompromised host, and it is very common with P. falciparum. And I already explained before that it is because of cytoadherence, because a sticky protein is being produced in case of P. falciparum, which coats the RBC which are infected by P. falciparum, and those RBC produces cytoadherence. They stuck together and then they block microcirculation, leading to multi-organ damage. Jaundice will be very common. Cerebral malaria is common in 15% almost. Hemolysis is also common in 5%. Renal involvement is also common, and you can come across in 7.5%. This is roughly the groups. The most common is jaundice, which is very commonly because of hemolysis of RBC. So, in a case of a severe P. vivax, you can see the incidence. It is relatively less as compared to P. falciparum. And once in a while, you can come across ARDS also, which can result into very high mortality. So even respiratory system can be also involved in case of a P. falciparum. So acute hemolysis, cerebral malaria, even kidney involvement, and even the person can develop acute respiratory distress syndrome. GI tract involvement particularly will produce diarrhea and vomiting. We already mentioned it is quite common in pregnant lady, and it can be transmitted from mother to fetus during delivery and can produce damage to the fetus. Malaria is also quite common in children, particularly below the age of 5 years, and it can be severe variety. More common in falciparum as compared to P. vivax. In a P. falciparum, severity is determined by impaired level of consciousness, severity of prostration, convulsions, metabolic acidosis, evidence of hypoglycemia, severe anemia, renal impairment, appearance of jaundice, pulmonary edema leading to acute respiratory distress syndrome, significant bleeding, shock stage, and severity of parasitemia. And usually you can have a parasitemia more than 10%. This is These are all the criteria which are being utilized to label a P. falciparum infection as a severe P. falciparum infection. So, depending upon the laboratory parameter, particularly the gold standard is a peripheral smear, which you can prepare a thick smear and thin smear. And you can look at other which gives you a roughly idea upon the severity of infection like hemoglobin, packed cell volume and platelet count. So you will have anemia, and which can be very severe, particularly in case of P. falciparum. You will have a leukopenia, thrombocytopenia will be also quite common, and you can detect malarial parasites in thick smear and type of malarial parasite by a thin smear. Which malarial parasites? By a thin smear. So try to find out that. And further you can identify by doing an immunological test, by doing a rapid test which will detect P. falciparum and P. vivax. You can do antibody detection test, or you can go for PCR test also to identify the type of malaria. So peripheral smear is a gold standard where you can prepare a thin smear and thick smear. Thick smear will just show you the presence of malarial parasite, and thin smear you can utilize for identifying the type of malarial parasites. And rapid diagnostic test you can detect by LDH dipstick test or by rapid diagnostic dipstick test. This you can diagnose, and you can also do polymerase chain reaction analysis. So always prepare a thick smear for demonstration of parasites and thin smear for which species it is. And person should be expert in identifying those particular parasites. Otherwise, false negative and false positive can be easily be in case of a peripheral smear examination. Experts should be there. This is in case of a P. vivax, this is P. malariae, this is P. ovale, and this is in P. falciparum in peripheral smear. I am not expert, so you can go through at your leisure time. Now, in India, particularly person who has traveled from a non-endemic area to an endemic area will be more prone to develop these infections. Or if a person who travels from outside and comes to India, he can develop this group of symptoms like high-grade fever, intermittent fever with rigor, splenomegaly with anemia. In a peripheral smear, you will be able to demonstrate the type of malarial parasite, and you can also detect by a rapid test, particularly which is highly sensitive, and you will be able to find out whether it is P. vivax or P. falciparum or both mixed together. You will be able to detect that. So we call rapid diagnostic test you can utilize. You can also do by ELISA immunoabsorbent test or by PCR test. You can use any one of these tests, and then you can start with them on a treatment. We'll be discussing regarding a treatment separately. So you can use a rapid diagnostic test, and there is also one type of test called as malarial parasite dual antigen test. So that particular test, it is called HRP test. So that you can utilize, or you can do LDH, so Plasmodium lactate dehydrogenase test, or you can do the quantitative test from a Buffy coat, or you can do a PCR test. All this can identify the type of malarial parasites. There is also one test called as a QBC for malarial parasites, which you can do, which is utilizing the fluorescent technology. Now there is one very good way. Any person who has got fever with thrombocytopenia, now if that particular person, if he has got a very high hemoglobin, then it is more in favor of dengue fever. If hemoglobin is less it is more in favor of malaria. And if there's a normal hemoglobin with high creatinine, it is more in favor of leptospirosis. This can be a little clue. If you just get one report where there is a thrombocytopenia and you look at the hemoglobin and creatinine, it will help you to differentiate these three common, which can be associated with what we call as a bleeding tendency. Dengue fever will be with, we call hemorrhagic fever. Even in malaria, particularly P. falciparum, you can have hemorrhage. And also in case of leptospirosis, you can have hemorrhage. But mainly you will have to differentiate from a common everyday fever like influenza, other viral fever, dengue, chikungunya, in particularly African countries, yellow fever, you will have to differentiate. And in India, good number of time, enteric fever, UTI and URTI are also associated with fever with rigors. You will have to keep that thing also in your mind. Now, as far as the management is concerned, it is always mainly to relieve the symptoms, you utilize antipyretics. You want to prevent the relapse, so you will have to give the treatment we call curative treatment and completely cure. And to prevent the spread, you will have to take all the precaution to not to get infected by a mosquito bite and not allow the mosquito to carry that malarial parasites to another non-infected person. And treatment should be started only after confirmation. It should not be on an empiric ground. This should be avoided. Just any person who comes to you with fever with rigor, you should not start with malarial parasite treatment. That is absolutely contraindicated. It should not be done because that is the thing which is producing resistance. So that should be avoided. Only after confirmation, and confirmation is done by a peripheral smear or by a rapid test or by a PCR test. You should confirm it, and after confirmation only you should do it. And in confirmation, which species, and then depending upon the area from where he is coming, say northern east area like Mizoram, Assam, in those area there is a resistance to chloroquine. So they are all chloroquine resistant, so you cannot use chloroquine. While in other area, you can have two groups, chloroquine resistance and chloroquine sensitive. So depending upon that, you will select the drug of treatment. So we divide into treatment for P. vivax who are chloroquine sensitive, in uncomplicated P. falciparum who are chloroquine resistance, and in a case of a P. falciparum, you can have complicated malaria and you can mention prevention or prophylaxis. So in an Indian scenario, particularly northern eastern area, you have got P. falciparum, chloroquine resistance group of malaria, or we call falciparum resistance malaria. And in other 18 states, you have got chloroquine resistance. This is northern eastern area. And they are also resistant to sulfadioxine pyrimethamine combination. So in that, you cannot use this as well as chloroquine. So we call northern eastern area. While rest of the area, they are sensitive to sulfadoxine pyrimethamine, which can be utilized. So all this has to be kept in mind. Now, depending upon the type of infection, depending upon the severity of infection, status of host and associated condition will decide regarding the mode of treatment. So all these factors has to be considered. So considered age, consider pregnancy status, consider local malarial parasite resistance pattern, which plasmodium species, severity of infection, status of host, associated condition, etc. should be, all these factors should be considered, and then only you should decide regarding the treatment. So we'll be going one by one. Sorry. So usually we decide regarding when we you want a clinical response, or we call clinical cure. Person wants a symptomatic relief. You will have to give antipyretics plus the drugs which clears erythrocytic stage. And we don't want recurrence to occur. You will have to treat along with clinical radical cure, and that is which destroys exoerythrocytic stage, particularly which will kill gametocytes as well as which will kill hypnozoites. And if you want to prevent the transmission, then you will have to give the drugs which is having a high effect on gametocytes. So clinical cure which blocks the transmission, radical cure, and then comes prophylaxis. So we don't want to transmit the infection from one person to another person because of mosquito bite. We'll call suppressive treatment, causal treatment. Causal treatment is for pre-erythrocytic stage and suppressive treatment is for erythrocytic stage, which can act on pre-erythrocytes, exoerythrocytic stage and gametocytic stage. Depending upon this, you will use a prophylactic drugs. So the drugs which are acting on an erythrocytic stage, they will clear the parasites from blood. Hence, this will be symptomatic relief, and that are chloroquine, quinine, mefloquine and artesunate. While the drugs which are acting on a liver, we call exoerythrocytic stage, which particularly acts on hypnozoites, which will produce relapses. And there is only one drug which gives rise to such very good effect is called primaquine. But primaquine, when it is given in a large dose and for longer period, there are a lot of side effects, so you should keep it in mind. But to get this effect, you have to give for an adequate period. Say at this stage I'll mention primaquine in an adult for PYX you will have to give for 14 days, 15 milligram every day for 2 weeks, that is for 14 days to have a complete clearance of hypnozoites, and that we call as you want to have radical cure. So that is called radical cure. While in case of a PYX, you give 45 milligram only single dose. You don't have to give any other additional dose. So it is a single dose of 45 milligram. While you can use tefnoquine, which is 800 milligram, a single dose. But yet this has not been approved by WHO. So some of the countries are utilizing this particular tefenoquine, which is 800 milligram, again single dose, and which has got even effect on schizentrocytes as well as on hypnozoites. So this can be in future one of the drug which will be apart from primaquine, because primaquine is contraindicated in person with G6PD deficiency. So any person who is having G6PD deficiency, primaquine is contraindicated. Also primaquine is contraindicated during pregnancy and in infants. So we'll be talking about all those as we pass out. And to prevent a spread, you want gametocytes to be killed completely. So you require a gametocidal drugs, and in that one of the best drug is primaquine and another drug is artesunates. So artesunate will be having effect on erythrocytic stage as well as gametocytic stage. So in a patient with a resistant malaria, when you use artesunate, it will have effect on both. And to have a very good clearance of hypnozoites, you will use primaquine. So schizentrocytes as well as hypnozoites, both will be cleared by primaquine. You can just see here. In liver, you get the pre-erythrocytic cycle where you get a formation of schizons as well as hypnozoites. So for clearance, clinical cure, you have to stop this cycle. So you have to clear the parasites in RBC. And for that, you will require suppressive treatment. While to prevent a transmission, you will require gametocidal drugs, and this will be done by primaquine. And you want to prevent hypnozoites to give rise to relapse, you will require a radical cure, and that will be very common in a PYX. And that will be done much better by primaquine, and you will have to give for 14 days. But for a prophylaxis, this particular treatment is not useful. We call causal treatment is not useful. You will require a suppressive treatment to be given for certain period of time. We'll be talking about that. So for a clinical cure, you require a chloroquine in a chloroquine sensitive area. But in case of a chloroquine resistant group, you will have to use either quinine or artesunate. That. While if you want to block the transmission, particularly this is very useful in person with Plasmodium falciparum, and you will have to give primaquine as 45 milligram single dose in case of Plasmodium falciparum. While for a radical cure in case of a P. vivax, you will have to give 15 milligram daily for minimum 14 days, or you can use tefenoquine 800 milligram single dose. And for prophylaxis, by and large, chloroquine you can utilize, or you can use mefloquine and doxycycline. And chloroquine in a chloroquine resistance area, you do not use a chloroquine, you use either mefloquine or doxycycline. And when you use doxycycline, it is 100 milligram per day, and you start from 1 or 2 days before the person reaches to a area that is an endemic area, or he goes away from an endemic area, and you give up to at least minimum 1 month, minimum 4 weeks we call, that is for 1 month. And mefloquine you will have to give weekly, that is 250 milligram weekly, and you will have to start before a person reaches the endemic area, at least 1 week before, and after moving out from the endemic area to a non-endemic area, give it for 4 weeks. So this will be there for prophylaxis. And when you give chloroquine, it is usually we call 500 milligram weekly if he is in a chloroquine sensitive group. So if there is a chloroquine sensitivity, then you can utilize chloroquine, and again you can give weekly. And after leaving the endemic area, you have to continue for another 4 weeks. So for a radical cure, usually you will utilize in a P. vivax 15 milligram for 2 weeks, and to block the transmission, you will give in a case of a P. falciparum 45 milligram single dose, or you can give tefenoquine 800 milligram single dose, but yet it is not been approved. And we have already mentioned for suppressive prophylaxis, mefloquine, which can be given weekly 250 milligram, or doxycycline 100 milligram daily, you will have to give. So P. falciparum, if it occurs during pregnancy, you cannot utilize certain drugs, particularly in a first trimester. Quinine will be the drug of choice in an area where there is chloroquine resistance, and you will have to give a full dose of quinine for 7 days. During this particular first trimester, you cannot utilize other treatment, and during second and third trimester, instead of quinine, you can utilize even ACT, that is artesunate combined treatment, where you are utilizing artesunate with other drugs. So depending upon, you will utilize that. In case of a P. vivax who are sensitive to chloroquine, you can utilize chloroquine and primaquine for a radical cure, or you can utilize tefenoquine for a radical cure. Then in a P. falciparum, you can divide into 2 groups, uncomplicated and complicated. But when the P. vivax is chloroquine resistance, it should be treated as an uncomplicated P. falciparum. In an uncomplicated P. falciparum, usually oral treatment is being given, where you can utilize artesunate with mefloquine, or we call ACT, that is artesunate combined treatment. So artesunate with mefloquine, or artesunate with sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination, or artemether with lumefantrine combination. So this will be for uncomplicated. While in a complicated malaria, particularly the person who develops cerebral malaria, algid malaria, or black water fever, or develops massive hemolysis, or person develops a severe shock stage, or ARDS, etc. They have to be admitted in hospital, and injectable has to be started, and supportive line of treatment should be there. And in an injectable form, you give artemether, and if required, you give along with artemether, clindamycin or doxycycline. And where artesunate is not utilized, you can use quinine with clindamycin or quinine with doxycycline or tetracycline. And particularly during pregnancy, you cannot utilize tetracycline or doxycycline. This has to be kept in mind. So, a national vector program has already designed and WHO has given a malarial guidelines, and we call that as WHO Indian Malarial Guidelines, which has been designed by National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, that if it is a PYX and if it is chloroquine sensitive, then you use chloroquine, and in a first trimester you can use chloroquine. But if it is chloroquine resistance, then it should be treated like P. falciparum. So if P. vivax is chloroquine resistance and P. falciparum, which is uncomplicated, then you can use artesunate combined treatment, or in case of first trimester during pregnancy, quinine should be utilized. If it is a mixed infection, that is P. falciparum with P. vivax, you have to use combined treatment, that is artesunate with sulfadoxine or artesunate with mefloquine or artesunate with, we call, lumeryl fort. And during first trimester, if it is there mixed infection, again quinine is a drug of choice. In a case of complicated or severe malaria or cerebral malaria, you will have to use injectable artesunate with ACT, means followed by ACT. And in case of a first trimester, you will have to use IV injectable form artesunate. You cannot utilize quinine. So this is the guidelines roughly in short. So this is a slide which now summarizes everything what you utilize. So in a chloroquine sensitive group of people with P. vivax, you will have to give chloroquine for 3 days, which is approximately 25 milligram per kilogram. So on the first day, 10 milligram per kilogram on the day 1, day 2, 10 milligram per kilogram, and then on day 3, 5 milligram per kilogram. Indirectly, even if you don't want to remember this, we say that first dose is 1000 milligram, that is 25 milligram per kilogram. You are dividing into 10 milligram. So on day 1, you give 500 milligram tablet, 500 milligram of tablet, which contains 150 milligram, 300 milligram of base. So this is a base. This is a base. So if we roughly say 50 kg or 60 kg body weight, so we will be giving 600 milligram, and 600 milligram comes to 1000 milligram of tablet, which is say Lariago DS. So you give Lariago DS 2 tablets, or if you are using a plain simple Lariago, you will have to give 4 tablets, because that will be accounting for 600 milligram of base. So usually we talk in the form of a base, or you talk in the form of a salt. So 1000 milligram, that is Lariago DS 2 tablet at the first shot, 500 milligram of second dose, that is Lariago DS second tablet after 6 to 8 hours, that is second dose. Then third dose has to be given at 24 hours. So on the second day, again you will have to give 500 milligram and 500 milligram. So that comes to 1000 milligram. And on the third day, 5 milligram per kilogram, which comes to what we call as only 300 milligram. That comes to only one tablet of 500 milligram, or 250 milligram 2 tablets. And this should be there along with primaquine, 15 milligram every day for 14 days for radical cure. This is a standard treatment for P. vivax in a chloroquine sensitive area group. But if you are residing in an area where it is a resistant group, then you will have to put them onto either quinine, or we call as ACT, that is artesunate combined treatment with primaquine. And we have already mentioned, if it is uncomplicated P. falciparum, taken for granted P. falciparum are usually resistant to chloroquine. So directly you put them onto artesunate combined treatment. And we divide into two big groups. Northern eastern area where you do not use sulfadoxine combination, artesunate with sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination. While in northern eastern state, usually we use lumetherfort. So that has to be given. We'll be showing you that particular, that is 0.75 milligram per kilogram of primaquine is given on day 2 with artemether lumefantrine combination. While rest of the India, that is living northern eastern area, all the other states, you can utilize artesunate with sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination, that is called larinate. We'll be showing you those slides. 4 milligram per kilogram, and primaquine is given 0.75, that remains same. So it is 45 milligram on day 2, that is 45 milligram on day 2. So we divide into two groups, rest of India and northern states, where you don't use sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination. And if there is a P. vivax with P. falciparum, it should be treated as a P. falciparum only, resistant group, where you use same as P. falciparum, this same treatment. But because it is associated with P. vivax, so primaquine is given for 14 days. And this is a very simplified form which you can understand, and you should follow this. So again I am repeating, P. vivax who are chloroquine sensitive, this will be the mode of treatment, that is 500 milligram of 2 tablets stacked, followed by 500 milligram after 6 to 8 hours, another 500 milligram at 24 hours, and another 500 milligram after 48 hours. That is on day 3. While P. falciparum, you divide into two groups, northern eastern state where you utilize artemether with lumefantrine, and primaquine is given in the form of 45 milligram on day 2, while in the rest of India, artesunate with sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination, day 2, 45 milligram of primaquine, and if it is a mixed infection like P. falciparum, but primaquine has to be given for 14 days. This is standard. But now if a person develops a severe malaria or complicated malaria, because of P. falciparum, treatment will change. But if P. vivax is severe, the treatment remains same as P. falciparum in uncomplicated group. Because very rarely P. vivax will result into cerebral malaria. So chloroquine sensitive, I have already mentioned all these things. Now specifically regarding a P. falciparum, we'll be showing you in the next slide. So maximum dose in adult is 1500 milligram of base. In infants 150 milligram of base, 1 to 5 years 300 milligram, and up to 10 years 600 milligram of base. So first dose stacked, followed by 6 hours, 24 hours and 48 hours. So first dose 1000 milligram, second dose 500 milligram, 24 500 milligram, 48 hours 500 milligram. Total dose 1500 milligram base, or we call 2500 milligram of salt. And as far as primaquine is concerned, in P. vivax for 14 days, 15 milligram for 14 days, and in case of P. falciparum, 45 milligram a stacked dose, single dose. And that is available as Malarid DS, which is easily available, and you can give 15 milligram tablet is there. So one tablet for 14 days. And we have already told you, if it is a resistant malaria, you will have to use quinine or sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination, or doxycycline, mefloquine or artesunates. Primaquine is contraindicated in infants, pregnant women and person with G6PD deficiency. This should be kept in mind. And when you give a large dose, particularly of chloroquine, for a very long period, particularly you are using for prophylaxis, and when you give it for a long period, you have got a very high chance of developing bullseye maculopathy. You can see it looks like a bullseye. So that is this maculopathy. You can see here in this picture. So that is called maculopathy. That is quite common complication, and person will have retinal problem. And this is more common with dihydroxychloroquine, which is being utilized in a person with rheumatoid arthritis, etc. Now primaquine, when we give, see, when a person comes, we are not aware of that a person is having G6PD deficiency. And as we are not aware of a person with G6PD deficiency, you have to start treatment. But once you start treatment, do keep a watch on if a person complains of dark colored urine, yellow conjunctiva, bluish discoloration of lips in the form of central cyanosis, abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and person is breathless, and person develops severe anemia, you should stop primaquine immediately and switch over to other group of drugs. And particularly primaquine is absolutely contraindicated during pregnancy in newborn infants and J6PD deficiency. This should be kept in mind. So primaquine will be contraindicated because primaquine is a wonderful drug, but you have to keep this particular watch. So we have already mentioned chloroquine sensitive area and chloroquine resistant area. We have mentioned regarding chloroquine sensitive area. So during suppressive treatment, we already mentioned that if it is a sensitive area, you can give 500 milligram weekly, and that should be continued. Starts from 1 to 2 days before traveling, and it should be continued when he returns back, or it should be given for minimum 4 weeks after he returns back to endemic area. So that should be done. And in a case of chloroquine resistance, usually mefloquine is utilized 250 milligram once a weekly, or doxycycline 100 milligram 1 tablet daily. Doxycycline you can start 1 day before, while mefloquine you will have to start 1 week before and continue for 4 weeks after returning to the endemic area. This has to be followed for both mefloquine as well as doxycycline. So chemoprophylaxis is usually done with doxycycline or with mefloquine. So doxycycline is daily, while this is every week. That is 250 milligram weekly, while this is 100 milligram daily. This we already mentioned. P-Vivex sensitive area, chloroquine plus primaquine. P-falciparum, we already shown you slide before. That is artesunate combination treatment with primaquine, single dose. And during pregnancy, quinine is the drug of choice. During second and third trimester, again you can use artesunate combined treatment, and you have to give it only for 3 days. And when you give quinine, it has to be given for 7 days. And in a case of a mixed infection, only you have to keep it in mind. It is same as P. falciparum, but primaquine will have to be given for minimum 14 days. So that is the standard. Tafenoquine is not yet being approved by WHO. So this is the entire treatment. Again, it is repeated again and again. WHO has recommended in 2010 artesunate in act. These 4 compounds are being included. That is artesunate with sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination, artesunate with mefloquine, artesunate with amidoquine. This is usually not utilized nowadays. There is another compound called as a dihydroartemisinin with piperacquine. This is again not commonly utilized in India. We mainly utilize sulfadoxine combination and lumefantrine combination. That is lumefantrine is combined with artemether. So these two are commonly being utilized in India, either with artesunate sulfadoxine pyrimethamine or artemether with lumefantrine. That is most commonly utilized in India. So these 2 compounds are commonly utilized. So usually this is called artemisinin based combined treatment. WHO has recommended this particular in chloroquine resistance P. falciparum, which are what we call as uncomplicated. But you have to remember that this sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination should not be utilized in a person who are in a northern eastern area. So this becomes a choice anywhere, whether it is northern eastern area or sensitive area. But sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination should be utilized only if only if the person is in a other group, other area. So this should not be utilized in the person who are staying in a northern eastern area. So that is not being utilized. So northern eastern area includes Arunachal, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Tripura, Nagaland, etc., where this sulfa pyridoxine combination is not being utilized. You mainly utilize artemether lumefantrine combination only. So in the northern eastern area states, mainly that combination is being utilized with primaquine, which has to be given 45 milligram on second day. I'll show you now tablets. This is called Lumether. They are available in two forms, plain Lumether and Lumether Fort. Lumether Fort is available in the form of, you can see here, what you will have to do, you will have to give 4 tablets together. So that will make 80 milligram, here, 80 milligram and 480 milligram. So 4 tablets will be there. So you will have to give 4 tablets in the morning, 4 tablets in the evening, BID. So it will come to 80 milligram and this will be 480 milligram. While Lumether Fort is already containing 80 milligram. So there will be one single tablet which will be this 1 BD. Well, this will be 4 BD for 3 days. And along with that, you will have to give 45 milligram of primaquine on day 2. On day 2. That will be the standard thing which has to be utilized in chloroquine resistance P-Vivex or P-Falciparum. While this you cannot utilize in case of complicated malaria, because in complicated malaria you will have to use injectable form. And if you are utilizing this particular combination, we call this is lumefantrine. Lumefantrine. While if you are utilizing sulfadoxine combination, where you will be giving 200 milligram of artesunate plus sulfadoxine 1500 milligram and 75 milligram pyrimethamine. On day 2, this is on day 1. On day 2, artesunate with primaquine. And day 3, only artesunate. And this primaquine is 45 milligram dose. So this is available as Larinate kit or Falsigo SP kit. Well, this particular is available as Lumether Fort or Lumirex. These are the two different companies. This is freely available in market. So Fort is better because it becomes single tablet. Compliance will be better. Lumirex is also available as 6 tablets, so 1 BID for 3 days. And then you will have to give separate primaquine on day 2, 45 milligram. And if it is a mixed infection, then you will have to give 15 milligram of primaquine for 14 days. And if you are utilizing artesunate with sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination, it is available as Larinate 200 kit or Falsigo SP kit. So these two names are there. I'll show you that particular. So this is containing this way. So this orange are artesunate. You will have to give on day 1, morning, evening, and this will be the 3 tablets of sulfadoxine pyrimethamine. And that will be one single dose on day 1. On day 2, this will be 2 tablets. This is 100 milligram. So you will have to give 2 tablets. You can see here, it is 200 milligram. So you will have to give 2 tablets. And you will have to give primaquine separately as 45 milligram if it is plain simple P. falciparum. And if it is a mixed infection, you will have to give 15 milligram every day for 14 days. So whatever we have uttered, same thing is given here. So if you use artesunate sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination, this will be the thing 100 milligram BID for 3 days. Sulfadoxine pyrimethamine combination, 3 tablets will be there that you will have to give on first day. Plus you will have to give primaquine 45 milligram on second day. If you are using mefloquine combination, usually we don't use this in India very commonly. So 100 milligram BID for 3 days, and mefloquine you will have to give 750 milligram on second day, and then 500 milligram on third day. While Lumefantrine, this is a very simple combination. So 1 BID, if you are using limited fort, 1 BID for 3 days, straightforward. And if you use quinine, it is 600 milligram TDS for 7 days plus 100 milligram doxycycline OD for 7 days, or you can use clindamycin, which is preferred during pregnancy. But when you use clindamycin, it is 300 milligram BD for 7 days. So this covers almost everything, except I will now go directly to, this is that whatever we have uttered at present. This is for mixed infection. We have told you only difference will be primaquine you will have to give 15 milligram daily for 14 days. And if it is a very severe malaria or complicated malaria, you will have to start with injectable form. We have already mentioned what tells you that it is severe malaria. If there is an altered level of consciousness, convulsions, prostration, severe anemia, jaundice, there is a ARDS, or there is a creatinine which is being elevated, there is a bleeding, there is a shock, or there is a acidosis, or there is a severe hyperparasitemia. If any one of these findings are there, it should be treated as severe malaria or complicated malaria. And in that you will have to use parenteral preparation. The most common preparation which is being utilized is artemisinin preparations which are being utilized. And in a pregnant woman in a first trimester, artemisinin is not utilized. Quinine you give, and you have to give for 7 days as early as possible. As soon as the person recovers, it should be switched over to oral. And in second and trimester, you will have to give artesunate combined treatment for 3 days. Doxycycline, mefloquine should be avoided during pregnancy, and primaquine has to be totally contraindicated during pregnancy. So as far as injectable form is concerned, artesunate can be given IV or intramuscular. By and large, it is preferred IV. It has to be given 12 hourly, and the dose is 2.4 milligram per kilogram, 12 hourly, and then you can make it OD. First dose has to be given 12 hourly, and then you can switch over to OD preparations, and that has to be given for 7 days. And as early as possible, a person starts taking orally, you switch over to oral. By and large, you can switch over on the third day, by and large, and then you have to continue for 7 days. Then you have to give it those particular preparation OD for 7 days. If you are using artemether, it is an intramuscular injection. You will have to give 1.6 milligram per kilogram OD for 7 days. Day 1 is 3.2 milligram per kilogram, and then you switch over to 1.6 milligram per kilogram for 7 days. And if you are using alpha beta artemether, that is EMAL, it is available as EMAL injection. It is only 150 milligram dose, OD only, and it is purely intramuscular. This is also intramuscular for 3 days only. This is not for 7 days. This artesunate is available as Falsigo. So Falsigo initially you will have to give a larger dose, 2.4 milligram 12 hourly, and then you will have to switch over to OD. While artemether is available as Larimer, which has to be given on the first day, 3.2 milligram per kilogram, and then you can switch over to 1.6 milligram per kilogram OD for next 7 days. While this will be only for 3 days, intramuscular injection, not even IV. But as early as possible, you will have to switch over to oral treatment. Oral artesunate combination treatment. In some of the cases, quinine is being utilized where other preparations are contraindicated, and quinine infusion has to be given slowly till oral is possible. Usually it is given in the form of 20 milligram per kilogram in 10 ml of 5% dextrose over a period of 4 hours. and it can be repeated after 4 to 8 hourly interval depending upon the severity of infection. And in a case of a cerebral malaria, usually we have to give 8 hourly. And then as soon as the oral person is able to take orally, you can switch over to oral treatment in the form of quinine oral tablets, plus you can give doxycycline. And whenever you are giving quinine, see that person do not develop hypoglycemia, because quinine is notorious to produce hypoglycemia and there is hyperinsulinemia. And simultaneously, any person who has got a complicated malaria, you should give adjuvant treatment in the form of control of fever, anticonvulsants may be required, correction of electrolyte imbalance, correction of acidosis, correction of hypoglycemia, etc. should be done. All those whatever we have mentioned is mentioned again here. The full loading dose of quinine, what you give in doxycycline, clindamycin during pregnancy, etc. and quinine with doxycycline or clindamycin combination. This is piperacquine with what we call as artilone. This is during pregnancy, during first trimester. We have told you that it is quinine with clindamycin. You cannot utilize doxycycline during pregnancy, so clindamycin is the only drug of choice. And during second and third trimester, you can utilize artesunate with clindamycin, or you can utilize quinine with clindamycin. So that combination you can utilize. And primaquine is absolutely contraindicated. This is entire treatment during pregnancy. We have already mentioned everything, so at your leisure time you can go through. These are all the drugs which are available in anti-malarial drugs. We are not going in all those drugs. This you can divide into two groups. We call fast-acting drugs, slow-acting drugs. I'm not going into that pharmacology. So you got chloroquine, sulfadoxine and mefloquine are fast-acting drugs and long-acting drugs, while these are short-acting drugs. Artesunate groups are short-acting drugs, but they are sesonticidals. Like lumefantrine is long-acting and primaquine is a short-acting drug. So most commonly utilized drug is chloroquine, quinine, mefloquine, sulfadoxine, and lumefantrine, and amidoquine is not commonly being utilized. And particularly for sesontocidal and gametocidal, most common drug utilized is primaquine. So this is the evolution which has come up. This is a fixed drug combination are available, but they are not good. Mainly what are being utilized, two groups we call quinine based combination and artemisinin based combination. But the most common which are being utilized is artemisinin combination, and they are very important in case of P. vivax, which are chloroquine resistance, and P. falciparum, which are chloroquine sensitive or chloroquine resistance, uncomplicated and complicated malaria. In all this, artemisinin based combination is the most common treatment which is being utilized. These are artemisinin which are available: artesunate, arteether, artemether, and dihydroartemisins. These are the things which are available, and this is the plant which is there. And these are all the derivatives. Artesunate is water soluble, hence can be given intramuscular or IV, while these are lipid, means they are oily, they cannot be given IV, so they have to be given intramuscular only. So that is artemether and alpha beta arteether, and they are seedal. Usually there is no resistance, no cross resistance, and they are well tolerated, hence the drug of choice. And half-life is short, so can be given as a monotherapy for 7 days, and you can combine with other drugs. So these are all the detail regarding those. There are other drugs like fluoroquinolones, azithromycin, doxycycline, clindamycin, piperacquine, etc. There is another drug which is being utilized more commonly in African countries, we call bulaquine, which is 25 milligram once daily for 5 days. Yet it has not been marketed. It is contraindicated in rheumatoid arthritis and SLE. So you have to keep it in mind, and it can produce hemolysis. It is a drug of choice in a resistant group of P. vivax malaria. This is atovaquone, which is not commonly utilized in India. At your leisure time, you can go through. This is entire malarial prophylaxis and treatment, pharmacotherapy and treatment. We have already mentioned everything. So this is a revision. At your leisure time, you can go through, you can have a pause and you can go through. This is a combined guidelines given by WHO and Indian Malarial Control, National Vector Control. Yes, they are going for gene therapy and malarial vaccine. One vaccine is under the trial. In near future, you might have a vaccine. It is vaccine RTS and S/ASO01. They are also trying to have a genetic mapping in a Plasmodium falciparum. And they are also trying interleukins treatment in case of severe Plasmodium falciparum. In near future, this may be one of the things which may be utilized. As far as the vector control is concerned, these are all the things which you should take care as far as vector control, that is mosquito control. And you can also utilize this guppy fish in a area where there is a breeding place for mosquito. Then you can also use fumigations, different ways of fumigations. You can use repellents, you can use nets, lamps. These are all the difference. These are repellents. These are all repellents which are available. You can use destroyer also, rackets, lamps. These are all the things which are, these are repellents. They repel as well as they destroy also. They kill also. Nets you can utilize, which are coated nets. Lamps you can utilize. These are spray. These are lamps. So this is a summary. Uncomplicated P. vivax. These are severe malaria groups, complications which can occur. Lot of complication, and this is more common with P. falciparum. That is right from cerebral malaria, AKI, ARDS, severe anemia, DIC, hemoglobinuria, hypotension, shock, hyperparasitemia, hyperpyrexia, hemolysis, hypoglycemia, lactic acidosis, etc. There are a lot of complications. You will have to handle that. So at the end, I'll say IPLL malaria keeps coming back every year. So do keep a watch. So I think this has been very exhaustive. So I thank you all for taking out time. I know that your time is valuable, and I appreciate that you have spent some of the time with me. And I feel this will be very, very helpful, because every day in and out, in our family, in our community, in our society, you will see a case of P. vivax or P. falciparum. And if you detect them early, treat them properly, you can prevent morbidity as well as mortality. So I end my lecture here. If you feel this lecture is helpful to you, please press button like. You can give your suggestions so I can improve on my lectures, and see you in next lecture. And you can share with your friends also.